Greetings everyone. In this module we are going to learn how to use Puppeteer. So in this module we will scrape the Airbnb site to get all the different homes that we can stay at. We're going to scrape the cost per night, the rooms, the bedrooms, baths, and so on. And we're going to be using basic functionality within Puppeteer to do all of this. We're not going to be using request at all in this tutorial because the Airbnb site is purely JavaScript. So this is probably one of the most difficult sites to scrape in this course so far because they're not using any identifiable classes or so on inside of their markup of the site. So hang on there and take a look at this module where we are scraping Airbnb using Puppeteer. First thing you need to do is you need to make an empty folder. I called my folder Airbnb Scraper. So inside this empty folder that I opened inside of Visual Studio Code, I'm going to go inside the terminal and write npm init -- yes. Then we're going to add two packages. We're going to add Cheerio and Puppeteer, like so. Now Puppeteer can be a quite big package to get because it's actually downloading the most recent version of Chromium. So, but it's guaranteed to work with this API inside of Puppeteer. So it looks like it failed to download Chromium, so I'm just going to try again and see if it's not timing out this time. Okay, so now I downloaded the Chromium browser inside Puppeteer and we can start writing the program. So before we get into the coding part, I think it's a good idea that we are going to see what exactly we are scraping. So I'm on the Airbnb page. I'm inside of the home section because I want to look at homes. So I go to homes. And well, then I select a city. In this case, I am looking at Copenhagen, homes in Copenhagen. So I click here and it says show all. Of course, you can choose any city you want, any place you want, but in this tutorial exactly we are choosing to do Copenhagen. Okay, so when you are in this page view, you can see as I scroll down, we get more pages of homes. But for this, I want to show you if you make the page smaller, then they put a little bar down here. So now you can have links that you can go onto for the different pages, which makes it a lot easier to scrape the pages than automating the scrolling down and so on. You can just go to a link and scrape the homes on that page instead. So basically when the window is a smaller size, the bar below appears, so you don't have to scroll down to get more homes. And that's a lot easier to scrape. Now, then we want to scrape all of the links of these homes. And then we want to go into the description page of each of the homes. And we want to get the number of guests. You can have the bedrooms they got, the beds, and the baths they got. And yeah, of course you also want the price per night. And that's basically what we are going to get for now in this scraper. And we're also going to get just an URL for this image, the top image here. Okay, so I hope that cleared it up a bit, what we are going to get from the Airbnb site. We are going to get all of the homes, their URLs here in this page. Then we go inside of the description and get the info up here, the guest and so on, rooms, and we get the price per night over here. Okay everyone, so let's get on to the next section where we start the actual scraper. Okay, let's write our first index.js file. So, and then we will import the Puppeteer using require and Cherio. Now, the first page we are going to go into is this one. And let's see how it looks like. Looks like this. Actually, if we go down to number 2 here, then there should be some kind of offset. Yeah, so you can see there's an offset here, so that means there's 18 homes shown on each page. So if we write 36 instead, we go to basically page 3 instead. So yeah, you can see we're on page 3 now. So the idea is that we go to this URL here and we just bump it up by 18 each cycle we go through. So let's say this as a comment right here. And then I want to define exactly what we are going to scrape. So I'm going to just make a sample here, and we're going to get, I know I said it before, but I just want to make it clear how the object is going to look like. So we have a guest, for example, it has a number 1. We have a bedrooms, has a 1. Beds also has a number 1. And a bath, we have 1. Now in this case it has a shared bath also, this one. Some of them just have bathrooms, but we're just gonna keep it simple for now and just have it as bath. So then we have the price. In this case it's in my local currency where I'm at, so it's crowns, kroner. Maybe it's USD or Japanese yen where you are, I don't know, but for me it's krona right now. So I will call it krona per night, and in this case it's 350. Okay, so that's what we are going to scrape from each of these rooms or homes in here. Okay, in the next section we are going to go into this page, load it into Puppeteer, and get all of the URLs we see on this page here. Okay, now let's try and look at the index page, see if there's some HTML markup we can look at to get the homes that we need. So I press Ctrl I, look inside of my elements, and we look at the home here, this one. Let's see if there's, whoa. Okay, so we got an item list element, looks like, for each of these. Yeah, item prop, item list element. So it looks like we can use this to go inside and get the homes. Let's see. Yeah. Also we have this one, a element. Okay, so we can try and look for an item list element and then look for an a element. Maybe we can just say copy selector here. So I said copy selector. So nah, it doesn't really make any sense to do that. So I'm gonna say I will select all the item list elements, or all the elements that has an attribute of item prop, item list element, and then I want to select the children. That's an A. I think that could work. So let's try and do that. So item, what was it? Item prop, item list element. Item list element. Yeah, so it selects the first one here. And then I also want to select the A of that. That's null. It's not so good. Let's see. Okay, it has a, actually there's a meta item prop URL. That's a lot better, I think, to get the URL of the room. You can try and use that. Let's see. I think I'm gonna go with this one. Let's try that. So now I'll just select all the items with item prop URL and display the attribute of content. Type error. Let me see. Why does it say? Maybe it's, I think it's because they sort of don't really have jQuery on this one. So it's actually not exactly working as it's supposed to. I think that if we take this one inside of our Node.js, then we are going to get the result we want and just get the attribute. So let me show you what I mean. In the next section, we are going to go into the Node.js code, get this page, and get the items with the URL, and get the content attribute. Okay guys, so I'm really sorry that we haven't been getting into coding yet, but I promise in this section we're actually gonna go and write our scraper itself. So as you can see, we have the homepage URL here. If you didn't get it, look in the resources. There's a link for this URL, so you don't have to type it all by hand. It's pretty long. So, and that's the URL we get to, which I showed you in the previous sections. Okay guys, so let's write a function as usual. We write a, let's call it scrape homes in index page. It takes in a URL, and then we create a browser using Puppeteer. So Puppeteer, await Puppeteer.launch, and then we pass in an option to make the browser not headless, so we can see the actual Chrome browser running while we are programming this and debugging it and so on, so we can see what's going on. Okay, so then we create a page. So we say await parser new page, and then we can go and look at the URL. So we can go and say page.goto, pass in the URL, again use await, and that should open the page that we pass in to it like this. So let's go and see if it works. So we can call scrape homes, pass in the URL, and then we should see the browser window open up and open this page. So let's go and write node index.js. And we see the page is opening up. And you notice the window has a smaller size. That's okay, we don't mind that because it makes us get the bar down here below. So yeah, that's how you open the page. And now we just need to execute some JavaScript inside so we can select all the different elements in here and get the URLs of the homes. So remember how in the previous lectures we found out the CSS selector for item prop URL, and we found out that the content attribute actually contained the URL for the home we wanted to scrape. Now let's try and get the HTML for each page, and then from the HTML we can use Cheerio. We could also execute vanilla JavaScript inside of the page, but I like to use Cheerio instead to scrape my pages. Also, I'm going to add a try catch clause inside here. Just to catch any errors. Like so. Now let's get the HTML from the page. So const HTML await page.evaluate. Now if you're familiar with something like Nightmare.js, for example, this is really similar to Nightmare.js, where we basically execute JavaScript inside of the browser. So this is just similar to going inside of your console and writing code inside here. So it's going to execute inside of this Chromium browser. And what we want to do is we want to return the HTML of the site. So we can use the inner HTML. Now this HTML we want to pass into Cheerio. And then we can use the selector on it. So let's try and get some homes. We say homes, and we select our item prop, all the elements with the item prop attribute. That says URL also. Need to make this a double quote so we can have the single quotes in here. So all the elements that has the attribute item prop with the URL inside. And let's just run a map over this one. So I element, and for each of these we just return the elements attribute content. So in case you forgot from the previous section, each of these homes in this page, they have a, let me show you, they have a item prop or a meta element containing the item prop URL. This is what we're selecting on. And it has the content with the URL for the home or the room we're looking for in this page. Let's go into the code again. So this is the property we're looking for. I'm missing a square bracket here. Remember to put that in if you didn't get it also. So let's try and run this and see if we get an array of homes. So I will run console log homes, and this should contain an array of the different URLs from the different homes. Let's try and run it. So now the browser is running. Let's see. Okay. I think I did the old one again. If you've seen the Nightmare.js section, I did this also. We need to use .get excuse me, dot get, in order to actually get the values. If not, we're getting the Cheerio objects instead. So with dot get, it should be fine, and we should get the URLs like we want. Now do mind, if you want to, you can also just execute some JavaScript in here, which is returning a array, and just get the array directly like that. However, I prefer to just take the whole HTML instead of the page and pass it into Cheerio, and then I can select as much as I want after that. But that's just something to keep in mind, that that's also an opportunity if you don't like to use Cheerio so much. Now let's try and run this again and see if we get the array that we want. Okay, so it looks like we are getting the array. Now all that's left now is to go through each of these and basically get the descriptions and the rooms, prices, and so on for each of these rooms and homes. Okay everyone, now let's extend our script so that we can start scraping the description pages of all the homes we get inside of this function. So to do that, let's go ahead and make a new function. Let's call it main. And inside main, we cut this function call in here, and we say we want to return a homes array from this one. So const homes await. And then we want to change this one, the function down here, to say return homes instead. And then I'm going to remove the console log. And now let's put the console log down here instead to see if we get the array that we want. And then we are going to call main in the script instead. So what we're doing here is we're trying to return an array here, and we can make a new call to another function, pass in the array, so we can go through each of the homes URLs. And the reason I'm making a function is because I want to use the await keyword, and we can't use the await keyword outside in the global scope. So let's try and run it and see if it's still working. And we seem to be getting a nice list of URLs for the different rooms in the Airbnb site. One thing to notice is that we need to have a HTTPS in front of the links, so or else the Puppeteer browser is not going to accept the URLs if you pass them in. So we need to change this one up here where it returns the element of URLs. We need to change that and put an HTTPS in front like this, and we should be good to go. So I'm just going to run it once more, and we should see HTTPS in front of the URLs. And there we go. So now we're getting all the URLs, and it's ready to be passed into a next function where we're going to go into the description pages, all of these different pages. Alright, so now we got our script changed a bit so we can scrape all of the URLs, and we get the nice array back. But now we also need to actually go through each of these description pages. So let's try and do that in this lecture. So let's create a new function. We call it scrape description pages, or scrape description page. We pass in a URL and do a try catch clause. It's always nice to do. Let's see. So we pass in the homes to the description page. And then what we want to do is we want to go to a new page in this function. I don't want to launch a new browser for every description URL we're going to go into for every home. That would be a huge waste of resources to open a new browser, a totally new browser window every time we have a new URL. Instead, what we want to do is we want to go to a new page that we're just scraping the description page on, and we want to go to the new URLs on this page. Let me show you what we mean exactly in code. So I'm going to declare the browser variable up here in the global scope, and I'm going to move this statement to our main function instead. Remember to remove the const, so it uses the global variable. And then instead of making a new page for every description page we go through, like instead of making 10 new pages, I just want to use one page for all of these URLs. So I'm also going to create a new page here, description page, and let's see, await browser, new page. So that's going to create a new page, which we can pass into our function here. So add another parameter up to the function call here, which we call page. And let's see, remember to put a wait here, and then we put in the description page. All right, now we just need to make the call in here just to see if it is working. So you go and say await page.goto. So that should go through the array. We get the array of homes, and we should go through each of these homes arrays or URLs and open the description page. And so we need to make a for loop. I'm going to make a good old-fashioned for loop because a for loop is run in serial, unlike something like for each, which is going to run it in parallel. And we don't want to run this in parallel. It's not going to end so well for you, I believe. You might want to mess around with it later if you want to optimize for things and run it in parallel, but for now we just keep it in serial. So we get the homes array, and we go through each of these arrays, and we pass in the URL. So homes I and the description page, which we make up here. Yeah, so this should just open each of these description pages in a single page. Let's see how it's going to look like. So here it is, opening the homes array, the homes page. And there we are opening the description page, and it should be going to a new page every once in a while. So you can see it's going to a new page, and another one, and so on. You get the picture, right? So of course the next step we have to do now is we want to scrape some values from each of these pages, and yeah, that's the fun part. Okay, so on to the juicy part, which is actually scraping the data we want from these description pages. Let's see how we can do that. So we actually need to do pretty much the same thing we do up in the index page. We're just going to get some different selectors instead. So I'm just gonna be lazy and copy this from here down to here. And then we have this nice jQuery selector we can use for the page. Let's try and run it, and just to open the browser so we can look in the HTML and find our selector to get the data. So we got a description page up here. Oh, I closed the window. I was not supposed to do that. So we got a page here. I'm just gonna open it in a new tab so that my it's not going to load a new page instead while I'm looking for a selector. I'm going to open the good old developer tools here and select an element, and we're just gonna go straight for the money, guys, and select the currency and the value we got here. So I'm just gonna right click this one, say copy selector. Then we're going to paste it inside of the console, and we can see the selector here. So there's no real defining classes or IDs I can use to select exactly this element. It's just random classes you see here, random names. But I think the most efficient way to do this is to get rid of all the random class names, and we can still use this long list of parent-child selectors and go through the DOM tree to actually get our value. I think that's a more simple way to do it rather than taking all of the HTML and using something like regular expressions to look for something that looks like this text here. I think the more simple way to do it is to just go and look for this tree and find exactly the child element you want to get. So let me show you how we do that. We delete all of these weird names you see here with the dot before it. So this one, delete that. And you also want to delete this one because they're randomly generated for each of the descriptions. So we don't want to select by class names. We just want to select by elements instead. So make sure to delete all of these class names with the dot in front. This one, and this one. And you should be ending up with something that looks similar to this selector here. Just a lot of divs, one with a child selector here, some spans in the end. And we copy that. And let's just see if our jQuery, our CSS selector is working. So we just do this, and we can see it's working fine. I'm getting the price in here. So I'm just going to, well, copy this from the console and paste it into our script description page, your function we have here. And let's call it price per night. And then let's do a good old-fashioned console log. And let's see how that's turning out. So now we should be getting prices for each of these rooms, right? Price per night. Let's see. Oh, now it's showing dollars over here. I don't know why. That's weird. That's really weird. Anyway, you can see we got the first price of this one. We got this one also. The other one was blank. You notice that? Here we get the price. And here we got the price. There was one that was blank. And here we got the price. And here's a blank, another blank, but it was 350. You saw that short. And here's another blank, right? So why are we getting blanks here? Well, the reason we're getting blanks is because the page has not been fully loaded yet. Now, excuse me, sorry for that. And now Puppeteer has something. I'm just gonna go away from this. Puppeteer has something that is called wait for selector. So you could use something like await Puppeteer, await page, wait for selector. and you pass in the CSS selector like this inside. But unfortunately, we can't do that because the CSS, the element is actually being created, but it's not being filled out until later by the asynchronous JavaScript. So what can we do instead? Well, we can do a trick here where we say an option we pass into the page.goto. We pass in an option saying wait until that the network has less than 2 connections for more than for at least half a second. Let me just copy that straight from the Puppeteer documentation, how it looks like. So the wait until network idle 2 is going to consider navigation to be finished when there are no more than 2 network connections for at least half a second. You can also use a network idle 0, so when there's no more than 0 network connections for at least 500 milliseconds, but this one is a little faster, but it's going to work fine for what we are getting. So that's going to make it only consider the page to be loaded once we're not fetching lots of data in using JavaScript. Inside of Chromium, of course. Now let's see if we get lots of blank prices now, or if we're actually getting some good values. So 720 and 900. So it looks more promising now, right? So it's going to be a little slower, but it's of course a lot better data you get out of the result. Okay, everyone. Now in the next lecture, we're going to get the rest of the values we have inside of the rooms. What is up, everyone? In this section, we're going to look into how to scrape the guest allowed and the bedrooms, beds, and baths. Now, in the previous section, we got the price per night using this CSX selector, which has a lot of divs and spans and so on. But I found out that you can't really do the same thing with the guest allowed. Instead, we have to use some regular expressions because we can't just define how many where the information is in the DOM tree, because I think there's different versions you can get. There's seems to be 3 different versions of the site you can get. So sometimes I found out that one version would work, sometimes another one would work. So I came up to 3 different versions for each of these. And yeah, so you could of course do that, but I think it would be a lot nicer if we started using regular expressions instead to get this data we want down here. So basically the page is changing a bit, so we can't use these very generic CSS selectors without any classes. We can't just select it through the DOM tree because the page is changing at random. I think it has something to do with, for example, an announcement like this one we have here. So yeah, that is why we are going to use regular expressions now to get the guest allowed and the bedrooms and so on. Okay guys, so now it's time for us to scrape the rooms we have, or no, sorry, the number of guests that's allowed in the rooms. I've removed all the code I showed you in the previous lecture because I just wanted to show you why we are going to use regular expressions now. So let's get on to it. So on my right side, I have my favorite site for checking regular expressions. And I'm going to be showing you in a moment how we are going to use this. Let's first just try and run the script. So I'm just gonna copy this into a blank page while the scraper is still running new pages here. I'm going to go into Chrome Developer Tools, and now each of these elements is contained inside a div with an ID that is called room, and basically it's all the text for the posting we have inside of this selector. So if we go room.text, we get a bunch of text here, and up in the top we have the information that we're looking for. 3 guests, 1 bedroom, 1 bed, 1 bath. So basically we're gonna take all of this text and put it inside of my site regex 101 to test the regular expression we're going to write. So let's try and see. So if you're not familiar with regular expressions, it's basically a way to find patterns inside of text. So for example, D plus means we are looking for any kind of number of any length. If it's just D, it is just a single number. So if we look for D plus and guest, then we are going to find just the text here, which says free guest. Now notice that I'm not putting guest behind, because some rooms maybe just have 1 guest only allowed. So if we have the guest with the S in the end, it's going to not detect a text if it has only guest. So just to make an example, if it has 1 guest, this regular expression is not going to detect it, so we need to have only guest instead. But it is going to be fine for what we're using it for. So we see that this regular expression is working fine. Obviously, if the owner of the room is typing somewhere else a number and guest after, we're going to detect it as well. But most likely the information we want is right in the top of this text, so it's highly likely that the first result of this regular expression is going to be what we want. So with that being said, let's just copy that regular expression we have here and go inside of our code. So let me just make a room text variable for the selector containing all of the room's text, and then we are going to run a regular expression on that and return the results. So let's see, we can run guest matches room text match, and then we put in our regular expression with 2 forward slashes and type in our regular expression like so. And just to make sure that we're not going to get a index out of bounds error, I will check if the guest matches has a length over 0, and if it does, we will assign a variable. Let's call it guest allowed. By default, I will say not applicable in case we can't find this regular expression, and I will say guest allowed equals guest matches, and we get the first match. So that should be good enough. Let's try and print the guest allowed, and let's also just return the values we have gotten so far: price per night and guests allowed, like so. Let's see how it runs. Let's go and run the script. That's odd, it's not running. I notice sometimes that it is not running all the time, and I will try and debug why that is happening. Let's try and run it again. So now it seems to be running. So there we go, we get the crowns and the number of guests. I think the reason why the index page is sometimes getting stuck in this scraper, that I've noticed that sometimes, is because we don't have the wait until in that page. So let me just go ahead and add that as well. And yeah, as you can see, it is getting the price and the number of guests that is allowed in the room. Seems to be going nicely. 2 guests, 4 guests. Yeah, it seems to be running just fine. Okay, everyone, in the next section we are going to get the rest of the values, but it is pretty much going to be just like we are getting the number of guests allowed. So see you in the next lecture where we get the rest of the values. Okay, everyone, so now we are getting the number of guests that each room can accommodate inside of the listings. We also want to get the bedrooms, the beds, and the baths. And the way we're going to do that is pretty much the same method as we are using in here. So if you want to go ahead and do that yourself, get some practical exercise out of it, I recommend that you pause the video and try to do that. One thing to keep in mind before you do it is that I made a mistake here, because if we don't return any matches from this regular expression up here, this value becomes null. It doesn't have a length of 0, so you just check if it is not null instead of this. Okay, so if you want to do this exercise yourself, go ahead and pause the video now. And now for the rest of you who are lazy or just want to see how we do it, we go ahead and I do it now, and you'll follow along with me, of course. So we will write a function called return matches, because what we're doing is so similar to this. So we pass in the room text and the regular expression we're going to test, and we have the regular expression matches, which we run on room text with the regular expression, and by default we're going to set the result here of non-applicable, and I'm just gonna make the text a bit bigger for you. And then we check if the regex matches is not null, and if it's not null, then we just return we set the result to be the first regex match. And if we don't, if the regex matches is null, then there's something wrong, or our regex is not working as much as we want to. So we return a no regex matches exception, and we say no regex matches found for the regex match we're trying to use. So we can debug it later and look at the text and so on. And finally, we will return the result. Okay. And so we're gonna go ahead and delete all this. And we'll just say return matches, pass in the room text and the regular expression, which I just deleted. And that was d plus guest. All right. And actually it was supposed to be guest allowed, not guest match. And yeah, now we can go ahead and write for the bedrooms. Return matches room text. And we pass in a number. I expect it to be a number, and bedroom and baths. Return matches. And then a number and bath. Then we have beds also. Return matches room text. Bed. Yeah. So, and then instead of having these console log down here, I want to return an object with all of the values we got here. And then instead I want to say const result here. So the object we return from the method here is coming down here, and we want to console log that instead. And let's see. So I also want to, if there's an exception, it's going to display this error, so we can see what regular expression is at fault here. And I also want to show I also want to see the URL, so we can go and check the page that's failing. And I'll put that on top of the error. And another thing, I think that, I forgot to put in the price per night in my values. I think that's pretty important. And okay, and so the URL, I also want to pass in the room text in my exception if I got an exception. So I will write console error room text. And now room text, we need to, actually I forgot to have my selector here. That's a mistake. You probably have it in your code. That's just my mistake that I deleted it. But we actually need to move this room text variable to the outer scope so we can display it inside of the catch here, like that. And let's see how it goes. Okay, room text dot match is not a function. Yeah, that's because I need to have a dot text on. Sorry guys. That is probably only my code that has that error. I don't know why I missed the room text definition. Okay, so let's see. One bedroom, one bed, one bath. Yeah, that seems to match what we have. And okay, so we get a error here. You see we get no regex matches found for bath. So if you go ahead and look at this listing, you see it says one shared bath. So the regex match of bath or number space bath is going to fail on this example because, well, it's looking for a number and a bath. And well, you can make it into an optional word instead. let's try and copy this. Let's see. Am I getting it all? Is this all of it? Let's see. It looks like it's missing the values we want. I can't really see those. Okay, it's up here. So, let me see. So we have bath, right? And that did not match, or does not match this one. So maybe if we put in bath as an optional word, it can work. So I put the word in parentheses and a question mark after. Let's see if it still detects one bath. It doesn't. Maybe if I have question mark before. Come on, question mark after. Oh yeah, that's because I have a space in front, so there's like two spaces. So if I put space here instead, it's going to detect both of them. And now we're kind of getting into I would say advanced. Of course, regular expressions can be a lot worse than this, but we're getting a little into regular expressions now, and there's other examples that you're going to run into where your regular expression will fail in these cases. So some of the rooms also just have studio. It just says studio here, so we could also make a or clause for studio here. However, I think that I don't want to make this into a regular expression course and go into that much detail. I think you guys by now are getting the point of how this works. So guys, this concludes the section on Puppeteer scraping. There's a lot more functions inside of Puppeteer, but I think we covered the most important things, which is sort of getting the page and parsing the HTML, the markup, so we can get it. Obviously, the most important feature of these browser automation frameworks that you got, like Node.js and Puppeteer, is that it's going to render the JavaScript. So pages that we normally can't see, like Airbnb, is now visible to us.